A lot of people will ask, well, Gretchen, why don't I just throw a heat lamp in there? That'll, keep us from getting frostbite and that sort of thing. I don't recommend heat lamps. And I started not recommending heat lamps when my friend Sally Harold had a Coop fire, because her heat lamp, the girls get in there at night and, they peck one another and they get kind of bossy. And what do? They get flighty, right? They do this. And then all of a sudden they hit the heat lamp, and the heat lamp lands in what? Yes, pine shavings or straw or sawdust. And so she had a Coop fire. And I have a Google alert. With Google you can set up alerts. You can set up alerts on D&B Supply. You can set up alerts on Coop Fire. Since 2009, I have had alerts on the backyard chicken and urban chicken. Coop Fire, in the wintertime, I get one alert a week, it seems, of Coop fires around the country because people are heating their coops. And so I really said, okay, Gretchen, put your money where your mouth is. And for the longest time, we've had just one chicken. It's a long story. Don't do as I do, but do as I say. You always need a couple chickens because chickens are flocking animals. They need a flock. Hedwig made our German Shepherd her flock. So we had one chicken, and I did not heat her coop. And she did just fine. It's amazing what Mother Nature does. She just became this bionic chicken, and just, her feathers were incredible. And she was fine. And the wonderful thing about our weather is it gradually gets colder and colder and colder, except for last year when we had that November freeze, right? Yeah. So she was really in great shape for the winter. And she usually molts right before the cold weather. So I'm sure a lot of you have molting chickens right now. And for those of you who don't know, molting is when they lose their feathers and then the feathers grow back in. In that time, which can take up to about 12 weeks, they don't lay eggs because their little bodies are concentrating on growing feathers. That's when you should boost the protein. Fat, protein, it's good for them. Let's talk about feed guidelines for wintertime. When you come into D&B to get your food, just ask them for wintertime mash or pellets, crumbles or pellets. And that's likely going to be a 20% mixture, okay? You need to give them 20% protein. You can add mealworms, that boosts their protein and keeps them laying if that's what you want to do. I love these. For oyster shell and grit, Dale, right? Back there? No? Yes? Okay. I was telling a fellow about this yesterday. Put your grit and oyster shell in these little rabbit feeders, and they're just so darling, the little ones, and put them at the height of the smallest chicken's back. You might have a Lockenwilder, they're smaller hens, and you want to make sure that the littlest chicken can get into it, and then the rest of them can as well. So I say if you want to do some oyster shell or grit in the wintertime, you put this in your coop. Do you mix it? I don't usually mix them. I do them separately, and the girls will use it okay? So oyster shell, y'all know what that's for, added calcium, right? Leina has a new product, and we couldn't find it today, but they have a new product that is the quality manufactured food, and it has added oyster shell in it. So if you have some soft shells, you might want to check out that product. Pretty cool stuff. I just read about it yesterday. Other foods for winter, you can make a mash. My grandma used to call it gruel. It's just, it's like oatmeal. When it gets really cold, the girls love it. Love, love, love that kind of stuff. Don't make too much so that it's just sitting out. Just a little bit to get in them. I always say like a quarter cup to a half a cup per bird. And add some lay pellets so that you boost the protein, or maybe some mealworms. The girls will probably go, what the heck are those doing in there? And then my girlfriend, when I worked at Bogus Basin, my girlfriend Karen had, her mom had chickens, and she swore by this. When the girls started to molt, she would mix together lard, peanut butter, and some natural oats. And she'd bring it to a soft boil on the stove, and I would pour it in the old tofu package. And then we just pop it out and you feed it to the girls who are molting in the wintertime. That stuff tends to really work. I said, and Karen swears by it. Tried and true. Yes, Lucy.
I have a couple questions. With regards to the Vaseline, how often do you apply that to the?
Good question. Vaseline, you can do it daily. I would do it every 2 days. I'll get you here in just a sec. Yes, and then one more.
The question was, when you use the chicken's eggs and you have the shells left over, can you feed them back?
Right, good question. I get that question a lot. A lot of people will take the chicken eggs themselves and feed them back to the girls for that added calcium. And I say, absolutely, if you want to do that. My mentor in all this, he would never do that because he didn't ever want his chickens to get the taste of eggs, because once a chicken goes after an egg, it's hard to break her of that. There are some tricks, but I don't know how successful people are with that. So what I would suggest, if you use your eggs, and you can, wash them out, throw them in the oven on about 200, walk away for about a half hour. That bakes off any kind of pathogen or icky stuff in it. Okay, for a half hour. Then I've done it before. You have to do it to be able to talk about it. And then I put it in the Cuisinart, mashed it all up, so the girls it didn't resemble a shell at all. It was just pure calcium. Okay, that help? All right. Don't feed your chickens these things: raw green potatoes, any food with high salt content, dried or undercooked beans, avocado skin or pit. I don't think they're going to be eating that. Raw eggs, don't give them a taste for that. I know there's some people who cook them up and give them back to the girls. I just think that's a little odd, but that's all right. Here's the deal. This summer I was raising puppies. I breed Bichons, and Hedwig went after the puppy food. Loves the puppy food. So, and I think it was chicken flavored, which is not good, but so I'll likely throw some puppy food at her this winter because it has fat and protein that's off the chart, and she likes it a lot. And candy, chocolate, and sugar. Don't feed it to your chickens. It'll rot their teeth. No, come on. Chickens don't have teeth, right? They just have these little barbs on their tongues, and they ingest their food, and then it goes down into that big bulgy thing on their chest, right? And that's called the crop. And then, do you know where it goes from there? Who said that? Yeah, nice work. Yeah, gizzard. So that's why sometimes you find little grit and stuff like that in the gizzard. I don't anymore. I don't eat chicken anymore, so it's a long story. Anyway, coop or free range. So this is a personal choice. If you free range your chickens and you've chosen to do that in the summertime, do that in the wintertime. I was teaching a class in Burley, and the woman would free range her chickens in the summertime, and her coop was one of those little short buses. I don't know where she got it, but it was old, and she converted it to a coop. She kept them in that thing all winter long. Did not free range them when they were used to it in the summer. Do that for your girls in the wintertime because they'll do just fine. They'll busy themselves in the yard. If we get a lot of snow, which luckily down here in the valley, we get some snow and then it goes away. It's rare that it stays. It stays sometimes, but it goes away. Just shovel out and let the girls go after whatever might be a little bit green. Let's quickly go over a coop and the anatomy of a coop, all right? This is the coop. This is the run right here. You can see right here there's a slit of light right there, this window and that door. And then under this roof, kind of a false roof, there's air can get up through it. And what I'm trying to point out is the ventilation aspect of it. You got to keep your coop well ventilated. More important. So check around your coop. Make sure no water is piling or settling because you don't want ice, right? You can do this sort of thing. We all have different coops, but if you need to keep the snow away from the door, this is a good idea. You can use a blue tarp. Just put it over the run, but don't do this because that's going to be a sauna in there in short order, right? You got to have good ventilation. So the first wintering hens class I taught was up in Haley, and those people put my feet to the fire because they get this sort of stuff, right? So if you're living up in the mountains, you may have to do something like this, where you give them a good area and use the snowblower and carve out some area for the chickens. If you don't already have your feeder elevated, do so. And again, elevate it to the height of your smallest chicken's back. My smallest chicken was Hank, the wayward Lockenvelder, right there. And so we put all of the feeder and the water at her height so she could get to it and everybody else could get to it. What that does, you guys, is it eliminates a lot of waste because chickens, you know, their name, their Latin name is gallinaceous. It means scratchers of the earth. And they want to get into the food and scratch before they eat, right? That's natural for them. So you want to make sure that they can't, it's high enough, they can't get their feet up in there. Plus, I love this type of feeder. Ooh, these tines right here, awesome. And they're just located right over here. Because what they can't do is get in there and get their little head in there and go like that and try and find the good stuff and then waste all the rest, right? If I'm one thing, I'm a thrifty chicken keeper, so I don't want waste. And that's why I love the chicken feeders with the tines. And you'll probably say, well, Gretchen, why is that plastic thing on top? Okay, we hung it here and Hank would roost right there and poop into the food. So that's just the cover of that's a cake cover, like what you get at Costco. And I put a slit in it and put a little pin on this, put the cake cover down over it, and problem solved, right? Really cheap and easy.